Every week, players gather at their local game stores. They trade, and they battle valiantly for both fun and glory. But amidst their triumph, only two will make it to the finals to fight. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Finals Fights. For tonight's feature presentation, we've got Doffy versus Katakuri. Man, this Katakuri in my local scene has just been an absolute terror. He was in the finals last week. He's been in the finals quite a few times, actually taken a few of them as well. And we're going to see how well he fares against one of the harder matchups for Katakuri, and that's Doffy. Arguably one of the hardest matchups for a lot of decks. Doffy just so good right now, just being able to constantly just keep a big hand size, keep a big board size. Very hard to deal with, flooding the boards really fast. For decks that don't have a whole lot of removal, very hard to compete with here, especially going first, starting with the Martial D Teach here. Sengoku on the first turn was also pretty solid here. Going to be activating Teach, putting a card on top, going to be going ahead and just do the typical Doffy thing. Swing for 7k, use leader effect, put a Jinbei into play, Jinbei into Boa. This is a very scary second turn for Doffy. Already have 4 characters on board, 2 of which are going to be swinging for at least 7k on the next turn here. Going to look at the top 3, decide where he wants those to be. It looks like there was not something he wanted in the mix there, a Gravity Blade. And going to go ahead and, yeah, attach one for good old Boa, and going to swing 8k at lead. Katakuri is just going to take this one. No triggers yet. Would have loved to see something like an Onami there to be able to KO that Boa, as Boa is going to be a pretty solid option for blocking Katakuri. For those who don't know, Katakuri, a leader from OP09, still seeing some action here 6 sets later. If you attach a Don to him, he looks at someone's life, yours or your opponent's, and then he gives himself plus 1000 power, which means he's going to always be swinging 7k as long as he's got one Don attached. 7k into Jinbei, just going to let it go, decides not to give up a 2k, and then plays a Pero Sparrow. Very interesting, maybe a pretty good read into the opponent's hand here, as that would have been a pretty free block with Boa and a 2k, but it doesn't look like the opponent has a 2k in hand. It looks like a Jinbei, a Perona, a Gravity Blade, and a 4-drop Law here. Not a lot of great things to put on top of the deck at this specific moment. Perona could be used to set up to just let you do a more generic Doffy play, right? Perona, look at the top 5, set those up, and then attach a few Don and just do a little bit of swinging here. Teach notably can target other 7 Warlords on your board as well, so it doesn't just have to be Doffy's leader. It could also give it to Boa as well. We're going to see exactly what Doffy does best, likely going to be attaching one here to Boa. Thinking, though, if maybe they want to use Boa later on and as just a potential blocker to stymie some incoming damage from Katakuri, because that guy, like I said, always going to be swinging 7k here, especially on the second curve. Katakuri runs a lot of odd-numbered cards, which allows him to use that additional Don every turn. But no, we're going to see a 7k a swing with Boa Hancock. This can require at least 2 cards out of Katakuri's hand, or Katakuri is going to go down to 3 life. Going to counter out of it with 2k and a 1k. Notably, that's a Gadatsu. Gadatsu, one of the better cards against Katakuri, or against Doffy for Katakuri, just because Doffy is often going to be at 4 to 5 life throughout the game. So Gadatsu kind of getting that free value, being able to KO pretty much any of the bodies that good old Doffy puts into play. Doffy is just going to swing a 5k here, which means we're likely going to get just like a Jinbei into a Law just to get more board pressure. Could bounce the Pero Sparrow back to hand, put the Sengoku back in hand, would be a pretty solid play, as that Pero Sparrow is just going to be another body on board that's just going to be swinging at you. So we're going to see a 5k, and Katakuri really in the tank here, deciding whether they want to counter out of that. Maybe that means that those 1ks in hand, or maybe something they want to hold on to on this next turn. And it's going to be an Onami. Onami's going to target the Teach. Very heads up play from the Katakuri player. That Teach on board is just very scary, and honestly represents a potential 2 Don every turn if the Doffy player decides to use it. And we're going to see exactly that. A Jinbei into a Lull, into a bounce Sengoku to bounce the Pero Sparrow. Going back over to the 6 Don turn for good old Katakuri here. This could be a turn to play out maybe a second Gadatsu. Maybe that might have been that 1k that was hanging around in the hand that he decided to hold on to. As it's very interesting to see a Gadatsu leave the hand just so early, because it's just such a powerful card in the matchup. Likely has another one in hand, at least that's the hope. Could be also be a potentially own Onami, though that not nearly as good in this specific spot as the Egghead Nami. Does cost 5 as well, KOs of 5 or less, but does require you to discard a trigger from hand, and Katakuri just has a little too many cards in hand to be able to cycle off her ability, as she also lets you draw a card if you have 3 or less cards in hand. Thinking here on the 6th Dawn turn, Gadatsu be a fantastic play. Gadatsu, you could clear one of the active bodies, and potentially you've already kind of checked your opponent to say that they don't have a 2k in hand. So a 7k swing into bow would be pretty safe at this point, unless potentially they picked one up. But you know, Doffy does run 12 2ks, but the fact that didn't give that away last turn kind of tells you what's in hand here. An opponent thinking for a second, gonna tap 5 Don, likely gonna see one of the two plays. It ends up it's gonna be the Nami. Egghead Nami's gonna pitch that Parasparrow that was put back in the hand to KO the bounce lull. And now we're gonna see a 7k into Boa, kind of reading that the opponent does not have a 2k here. Opponent just gives it up pretty easily. Doflamingo not having a 2k that last turn really allowed the Katakuri player to read the hand pretty clearly. Looked like we picked up a pudding for the turn. I think Katakuri's at 5 cards in hand. Typically, you don't want to pudding someone who's at 5 cards in hand. Yes, they could have the best hand imaginable, but you also could cycle them into a better hand. Typically, you want to be playing pudding when they have, you know, 6, 7 or more cards in hand. You know, 6 is like the minimum threshold for usually playing pudding, but we might see a pudding coming out here as we're going to see a 7k swing with Jinbei. Opponent's just going to take it, no trigger off life. Going to play out a Sengoku. That Sengoku notably came back to hand off of Lol the previous turn. Sengoku just being one of the best cards in this deck right now. Combined with like things like Jozu and things like that 4-cost Lol, just being able to search more than once a turn or more than one time off of one card is pretty darn good, as it has a lot of hittable targets in the deck. And we're gonna see a Gecko Moria picked up off of Sengoku. Could be the play instead on this turn, but looks like we're gonna see one tapped for the Perona, so it looks like we're gonna be going 7k with Doflamingo and an activation. See a Boa Hancock float to the top of the deck here. Pretty solid pickup off of good old Doflamingo. A lot of juicy targets in there, other than a pudding. Looks like we got the Mihawk, a 2k Crocodile, looks like another bounce lull, and then I think that's definitely a Boa on top here. Opponent's just kind of deciding the order, as Boa is going to be able to see the top 3, so maybe could potentially move things around here. Moving the pudding to the top here, that's definitely not going to be the play. Definitely want that Boa on top, especially if you're going to be committing to the swing here. Likely just going to leave the pudding in the top 3 to allow potentially bottom decking some options, because I think right now he's really needing a Weevil. Weevil being one of the key cards in this in the Doflamingo deck in general, right? Being able to refresh your hand so it's you know, parity on card usage, and then being able to swing 7k pretty easily just with 1 dot attached. Gonna go into a 7k lead. We're gonna play out the Boa Hancock. Gonna look at the top 3, attach a Dawn to leader, make it an 8k swing, and just gonna leave it on top. Looks like pudding's gonna be the next draw here, and gonna be swinging, and opponent's just gonna take the 8k swing. Gonna go down to 1 life here. Gonna be on the 8 Dawn turn, not yet at the big mom territory, and I mean that in the 10 drop mom. Looks like opponent's actually letting him take it. Okay, letting him change the order. Oh boy, that should be interesting. Opponent decided that putting on top not being the way to do it. You know, it's up to the opponent's discretion to let him do that. You know, people can definitely do that. Some people will shark, but some people will not. You know, it's up to the sanctity of the opponent here. And opponent looks like he let that happen. So giving Doflamingo a little bit of maybe a slight advantage here. But down to 1 life. Not enough Dawn for a 10 mom, right, which is going to be your slap way to gain life. If you slap down a 7 mom, likely your opponent's just going to trash a life, so you're going to be stuck at 1 life here. And we're going to see a 5k swing. I think that 5k swing was likely going into the Jinbei here, just trying to slow down the board pressure. Just going to get a 1k out of hand, that Gecko Moria. They search the other turn. We see 1 Dawn floating, which means likely could have a 7 mom. Again, 7 mom. Not very good in this specific instance, just because your opponent can always choose to just trash a life, and that's what makes 10 mom so much better. We're gonna go ahead and see a attack. Gonna look at the top life. Going to swing into the Jinbei for 7k, and then gonna play down the 7 mom. And opponent's gonna do exactly the right thing. They're gonna trash the top card of their life instead of giving Katakuri a life. And we're gonna go back to Doflamingo. Doflamingo has, I believe he put the I think it was the 2k on top or something like that. I don't even know exactly what he stuck on top there, but picking up a few cards. He's got a Gravity Blade in hand. Gravity Blade's kind of useless right now. Can't get the 2 for 1 on the board, as that 7 mom, it's just a little too expensive. And gonna play out the pudding here. Pudding gonna be putting that hand away. Hopefully for Katakuri's sake, gonna find him a slightly better hand, as he's been taking a lot of hits here, meaning he likely doesn't have the counter to counteract of anything. So this pudding actually might be able to put Katakuri in a better spot here, depending on what he pulls up. Yes, if he pulls up four 10-drop moms, he's gonna be in a much worse spot, but we'll see if Doflamingo ended up giving Katakuri a better hand here. Katakuri also knows what's on top of his life. I did not get a chance to check it from the at commentator's booth, but it must be something, hopefully something decent to allow Katakuri to stay alive here, because this is going to be he's going to be taking a few hits this turn, especially with that boa standing up and the Doflamingo, at least 2 hits. So needs to be able to get out of things here. Going to go ahead and go with a 7k at life here. Going to use the 0 cost event on a 7 mom, so that was a little gift from putting that right into hand here. And looks like he's going to swing 8k, going to activate effect. Should know what the top of his deck is, so it is going to be something he can put into play, I assume. And it is the Bounce Law here. Bounce Law does not have a target, but it will bounce the Perona and the Sengoku. You can bounce your own things off of his effect. And this is going to be an 8k swing, which he's just going to take here. And things are not looking very good for Katakuri. Losing, not having enough board pressure. The 7 mom coming in at a very inopportune time. And now we're kind of in the turn where we need to try to stabilize here. Opponent has a few cards in hand. We know that opponent put 2 1Ks in hand, so that easily going to get a 5K swing. It's going to get out, and then we're going to get another 5K swing probably in the Law, which will probably eat just another 1K. And this time it's going to eat a 2K, and then we're going to get an 8K swing probably into Boa. And based on the number of cards in hand, definitely going to end up letting that go. And then looks like a 10 mom's coming down. So far, Pudding gave the Katakuri 2 uncounterable cards and a 0 cost event. I'm not sure what the rest of the hand looks like and what he drew for turn, but looks like a 10 mom's into town. If that top life is something good, things could slowly turn around here, as the opponent is at 3 life right now. And Katakuri does have an 8k body and a 12k body. Yes, some Doflamingos are running Red Rock, but it doesn't look like he's got a Red Rock in hand. Looks like this is going to be kind of a turn just to go for it here, as defenses are slightly down. Katakuri only has 3 cards in, I believe, 3 cards in hand. No, four cards in hand right now. So we'll see what he ends up doing. Going to go ahead and 2k, 1k out of that a 7k swing. Could see another, there's 7 more Dawn. Could see let's say we're going to go for a 7k swing, more of a safer swing here, which will require 2 cards out of hand. We're going to look at top of life. Looks like it's a Brule blocker. That was honestly like one of the best cards that Katakuri could see right now. That's absolutely insane. Actually saves Katakuri, right? Because that is looks like that was a 10k swing potentially with Doflamingo with only 2 cards in hand. So Katakuri needed a miracle to get out of this here, and now good old Doflamingo is slightly pivoting here. Gonna use Sengoku, look at top 5. Does find another Bounce Law, can play the Bounce Law and then just swing 5k to just try to 1k check the opponent here. And if Katakuri bricks out, this could just be game here. 4-cost Law being just so darn good, so oppressive, right? It's honestly invalidated a lot of 3-drop and 4-drop characters in this card game just because of the existence of that card. That card, is that card the problem? Maybe that card is the problem. If we're gonna see some kind of handling of Doflamingo as it continues to run rampant, maybe that 4-cost Law is the problem. We're gonna see 4-cost Law come down. 4-cost Law is gonna bounce this in Goku, I assume, back to hand, and then bounce the Brule. I think we're just gonna get a 1k check on the opponent here. Opponent's actually picking up the other Law and bouncing, maybe recognizing that there might be another blocker here. And we're gonna see a 5k, and I think the 5k is actually going at Nami here, and just gonna get another he's just gonna use that 1k, right? So the downside of bouncing a blocker with a 1k counter is they can just use that on a 5k swing. So if Brule didn't have counter, things might have gone a little bit differently here, but opponent's at 3 life. We've got a 10 mom on board, a 12k body, an 8k body, a 5k body, and another 5k body, and 10 Dawn to work with. Opponent has 3 cards in hand, no blockers. I bet you could potentially math this out based on the way the opponent's been playing this game so far. It's going to be a bit of a luck cycle for Katakuri here, but I think honestly you have to go for game here. There's no stalling another turn. Opponent has 3 bodies standing up that you're not going to be able to contest with. Another 10 mom is not going to be that lucky, especially with only 2 cards in hand. We're going to see a 5 Dawn here. Or sorry, 6 Dawn. It's going to play out and trash the top card of the life. Gonna make going for game maybe a little bit easier here. Could swing 7k or 8k 7k, 8k 12k into 2 life and 3 cards. We know opponent's hand right now looks like 2 1ks and a event, so this might actually be enough here unless opponent just sees some crazy stuff off life. Opponent Katakuri player getting the smart play of playing around a Gravity Blade life trigger by attacking with Nami first. Gonna look at the top card of the life, which basically gives Katakuri all the information he needs to have. He's gonna counter out of that attack, and then now we're gonna get a 9k and then a 12k, and that's gonna finish game. Katakuri managed to sneak out a win here against Doflamingo off a Brûlée blocker. That blocker saved Katakuri. Man, what an insane game. If you like this type of content, definitely subscribe, join the crew. We're always looking for new crew members, and like the video, of course. We'll see you next week, next Friday, for another episode of Final Fights.